Hey people, welcome to Accidental Gods, to the podcast where we believe that another world is still possible and that together we can make it happen. My name's Manda. I'm your host at this place on the web where art meets activism, politics meets philosophy, and science meets spirituality, all in the service of conscious evolution. And in the service of conscious evolution, we would like to offer you this podcast extra. Way back in episode 74, we spoke with Ece Temelkuran, the celebrated international columnist, political commentator, novelist, and author of 2 non-fiction books. How to Lose a Country is written from the inside of what it's like to lose your nation to fascism and is an absolute call to action for all those of us in what we like to think of as the liberal West, as we potentially lose our countries. But then she went on to write, together, 10 ways that we can overcome the anti-humanism of fascism and become the people that we need to be to build a better, more flourishing future. And that conversation felt so deep and so useful and so mind-expanding to me that we invited Ece back for a Zoom call that took place on the afternoon of Sunday, the 5th of September, and we recorded it. And we thought you might enjoy it. So here it is, people of the podcast. Please welcome a Zoom call with Ece Temelkuran. Hi guys, welcome. We're just going to let people, when we've got to more than 30 seconds without somebody dropping in, we'll start, but we may as well let people keep coming. And for everybody who's in so far, I am recording this. If you're not all right with that, and if you don't want yourself to be recorded, then either cut your camera or let me know in the chat. But we have
Buenos días, Jorge, from Club de Lecturas.
Nice to meet you.
Jorge, I don't know him, actually. This is the first time we meet. But yesterday they held an international book club for How to Lose a Country. And there, I saw the YouTube video. There were members from Guatemala, Argentina, Mexico, where else? Spain, I think.
Yes.
I was touched, really. I was so happy to see that. I don't understand a word, but it was amazing to see that.
No, well, thank you very much for that. We really enjoy having the debate about your book, really. And our club is in Spanish, so most of the members are based in Spain or Latin America. So it was a real pleasure.
Listening to it was like a music. Probably you were talking about fascism or something, but it sounded so romantic. So
nice to meet you.
You too. Very pleased to meet you, actually. Yeah, and I'm very happy to see you here.
Well, thank you.
So people, we are. Sorry, go on. Okay, go on.
No, sorry, just to say we are going to have a second session because yesterday we covered just the first half. Mm-hmm. So the second one is in 2 weeks, and I don't know. I said in a tweet, if you were able to join us, we will.
Yeah, I would say hello for sure. I know buenos días and muchas gracias. So why wouldn't I join Spanish?
We could have. We could try a bilingual session.
I'm coming to Chile in November to speak about how to lose a country.
Super.
I'll put it on social media. Probably you'll see.
Super. Yeah. Thank you.
We've had more than 30 seconds without anybody dropping in, so shall we start? And I'll just continue to let people in as they arrive. So thank you all very much for coming to see the amazing and very wonderful Ece. We share an agent, which is how we got to know each other. And I've never discovered how you got to share an agent, but that's probably a story for another time. And I don't often have internationally famous people on the podcast. It was such there's very rarely where I feel my brain, I can feel the edges of my mind being stretched as we're speaking. And that was happening during the podcast with Ece. It just felt so, as if there was so much depth that we could have gone into, and we were limited. So here we are, and we can go into more depth here. So I would recommend that you all put Ece onto speaker view and pin her. I'm sure you're all familiar with Zoom by now, but if you're not, then pinning her means that if somebody else asks a question, you don't flip off Ece to see 30 seconds of them asking a question and then flip back again. And speaker view just means she's going to fill your screen a little bit better. So Ece, over to you, really. But I just want to say to everybody, if you have questions, you can. The easiest thing to do is to put them in the chat, and I will see that, and then I will ask them, or I will say your name and say, person whose name I probably can't pronounce has a question, and then you can ask it, so that we don't have people asking over each other. So if you have anything that you want to know, then put it into the chat. And someone's just put in the chat that they got the invitation, they came along without having read the book. That's fine. You're going to find out all about the book, and then you can buy afterwards. That is completely fine. So we are intending to talk about together, but if we end up talking about how to lose a country because one group has already been discussing that, then I'm sure Ece is capable of talking about any of the books that she's read. So while we're waiting for people to think of questions that they might like, and while I'm getting my own screen sorted, one of the things that we got to while we were doing the podcast was the distinction between dignity and pride, which struck me as one of those things that if we could disseminate that distinction and help people to understand the difference between dignity and pride, we would be a step closer to the world that we need to get to. And I wonder, since we had that conversation, you've been talking to a lot of people. Is that particular message sinking in, do you think? Are people absorbing that, or was it just a flag that went off in my head alone?
Well, first of all, thank you, Manda, and thank you, everyone, for joining in on this Sunday. Well, there are 10 words in the book. One of them is dignity, and I try to distinguish between pride and dignity to explain one of the perils of our age, which actually cause right-wing populism and fascism. But all the words or concepts that I mentioned in the book are very old, words. But I think we all have to get back to those old words, because we are all confused. And when you are confused, it is better to get back to the fundamental definitions so that you can find your way back to today's mess. So I was making a distinction between pride and dignity, and showing that we need more dignity than pride, but right-wing populists were mobilizing the masses under the word pride. I don't think people do understand that yet, and I wrote How to Lose a Country because I felt losing a country. I come from Turkey, and Turkey has been ahead of the curve, so to speak, with Hungary, with Russia, with India, or Brazil. Whereas I think Britain, where the book was initially published, or France, or Germany, or United States, they felt like they are exceptional for quite a long time, actually, when How to Lose a Country was published, and when I was talking about it in Britain and in the United States, people were, treating me like a crazy woman, and and they were very confident when saying that it couldn't happen here. It cannot happen here. But then we saw that it's happening. So I think now Together is a little bit ahead of its time as well, especially for Western European countries, because I wrote Together to kind of heal the moral damage that right-wing populism and fascism is imposing on us. So I think those words, not only the distinction between pride and dignity, but all other words, and the reason I talk about them will be sinking in, like in coming months. I am hoping that. Because after How to Lose a Country, I think many people, the readers of that book, expected me to write a revolutionary cookbook or a guidebook to how to organize and so on. Whereas I did not choose to do such a practical thing. And I thought that there is something missing, or there's something wrong with the morality of this age, and that is where we should begin talking, and that is where we should sort of prepare a treatise, a contract for our age, so that we can create the new politics upon those, conceptual pillars, in a way. So I think it's going to sink in, but it is still a little bit early, I think. And also, Manda, this is since we are like not many people, since we are among ourselves, I can tell this. When I talked to you in the podcast and before that, and a little bit after that as well, I now understand that I didn't know how to talk about the book because for a writer, it's interesting. Writing the book is something, but then formulating the book in the interviews is completely different. So now I am more aware of what I did and why I did it, and I can formulate it more, explicitly. So yeah, now I am thinking that I wrote this book. And I wanted this book to be Ingrid Bergman of Casablanca, because
You're gonna have to unpick that one.
So because everybody is like Rick, bitter, retreating, and under the powers of nihilism and fatalism and so on. And what Ingrid Bergman did to Rick, to Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, was to remind him who he was and who he is and what he can do. So this is what I wanted to do because we can fix the practical terms in today's politics. We can make institutional changes. We can change the people, we can change the leaders, but there is something rotten in the core of our thinking. This is why I wrote Together, because I think the understanding of liberal understanding of human and neoliberal understanding of life actually contaminated all of us, and even those of us who consider themselves controversial or in the opposition. So, and when I thought about it, what is this neoliberal understanding of human being, what has it done to us? I came to think that it actually damaged our faith in ourselves. That is why we lost the agency. That is why we don't anymore believe that we have the agency. And in order to change the world, we have to believe that we have agency, and we have to believe it 100%. So that was the central theme, when I started the book. And it is not easy to explain it, especially in interviews, because faith is such a, ambivalent word. It's a dangerous word, and it has a habit of getting out of hand. Several other words are like that in the book, like love and so on. So yeah, I am, going all around the book now, but yeah, pride and the distinction between pride and dignity is one of them. Yeah, this is all I have to say now. I
so much,
Mike in a most inconvenient place, I know, but
no,
I see
that's good, because there's I can think of at least 4 questions I would like to ask from that. But is it Jorge? Have I said that right? Anyway, the charming. He's got a question in the chat of why do you think the populist trend you analyse in How to Lose a Country is apparently limited to a phenomenon of the political right? Actually, Jorge, do you want to ask your question yourself? Unmute yourself and be nicer.
I don't know. I think my English is better by writing than by speaking, but well, in any case. No, we were a bit surprised yesterday in our debate because I think you limit your analysis as a phenomenon of the political right. But I think there are many samples of, this kind of trend on the left as well, especially in Latin America. We can see it in Venezuela, Nicaragua.
Mexico.
How do you like that? Yeah.
This is an interesting question because my answer depends on where I am answering this question. When I am asked this question in Britain or in the United States, I take the question as a manipulation because they want me to speak about the authoritarian left. And that kind of reference is not completely well intended, because they want to. I feel like they want me to say that, of course, there is Stalin, there is Soviet Union, and so on and so forth. But then I find myself feeding the Cold War discourse when I do that. So when I'm asked this question in Western European countries, I don't want to speak about it, and I say this. My answer is generally, what we are dealing with right-wing populism today, so let's focus on that. But when I'm asked this question by a Mexican, or like yourself, anybody from Latin America who are referring to Venezuela or Mexico or Nicaragua, I go, yeah, I understand you and you are right. But then I do not believe that these leaders and their supporters are necessarily progressive people. They are not leftists. Authoritarians and populists actually do not have an ideology. Even the right-wing populists, I don't believe that they have an ideological understanding of the world, or they do not really believe in some ideals. That's a better way to put it. Their only ideology is this pragmatism, extreme pragmatism, and their only ideal is to seize power and to stay in power. And that's it, and using authoritarian means, obviously. So, yes, there is so-called left-wing populism and authoritarianism today in Mexico, in Nicaragua, in Venezuela as well. And it is breaking my heart because the symbols, the references, and the emotions these leaders are using are the symbols, emotions, and the references that the progressive people have been using for decades, like Che Guevara and several other things. I was in Venezuela when Chavez came to power. I was there to report on progress. What is this? Not progress, proceso. And then I wrote a book. And the title of the book, this book is in Turkish, not in English. The title of the book is We're Making a Revolution Here, Señorita. And the title of the book came from one of my interviews. I was in this gas company, the national gas company, and I was talking to the head of the company, and I was asking about numbers, statistics, and information, and so on. And then he got bored, and he said, "We're making a revolution here, señorita. We don't have time for numbers." It's like, you can understand it both ways. There's a lot we have to do. I cannot tell you the numbers now, or I don't want to give you any information because we are in power now and we don't have to give the information. The transparency is not our priority, let's say. So I saw how it happened and how it's, how many good people, how many, all those, young people especially believed in this in the first place, and then how it corrupted, how the leadership of that process has corrupted the entire country, and how they ruined the hopes of the people. So it is personally painful for me to accept that Latin America is now, several countries in Latin America are now under the pressure of authoritarian leaders, and they are using the leftist discourse to do this. I don't know if this is a answer that would satisfy you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I agree.
Sure.
So, welcome to the people who've come in while Ece was talking. And nobody else has asked a question yet, so that means I get to ask some of the other ones. So I would like to continue a little bit along the line that we started there. Because it seems to me that if we look further back in the last century, Chile was under a very hard right-wing regime for quite a long time that was fostered by the United States. Now the United States is possibly, maybe, less likely to endeavour to impose its own financial and political views on other countries by force, which would be good. But we're up against a very hard climate and ecological timeline. If we don't sort ourselves out, it doesn't matter who's in power. We're all going to head off over the edge of the cliff. So what I'm hearing from you is that wherever we are in the world, the people who take power end up, whatever their starting point was, they end up being authoritarian. And we didn't go down the rabbit hole of whether the fact that everybody has a phone and we can now track everything that everybody does, minute by minute, we can listen to what we're saying. This is, this conversation is being recorded, and somewhere along the line there will be some AI system that is analysing it. They're not going to hear anything we haven't heard before. It seemed to me that the message of Together, which was different to the message of How to Lose a Country, was that if enough of us can find what we might loosely call the better angels of our nature, we can create a system where the people who pull the levers and make things happen don't become addicted to power. In your talking and explorations since the book, have you come across any examples where that is already happening, that we could begin to take as models and build on?
Yes, I do, and you do as well. I think especially during the pandemic, when our governments, I'm talking about both in Britain and Turkey, when they couldn't do enough and when they were lying, when they weren't giving information, we were living the real life and we were helping each other. And during the pandemic, I know that in Britain and in Turkey as well, so many mutual aid groups popped up. And now many politicians or progressive people or writers like me, they are trying to find a way to institutionalize these mutual aid groups. How can we steer our politics into these solidarity groups, and how can we make them the dominant understanding of politics? The other day, I was having a conversation in Edinburgh Festival with Ed Milliband. He wrote a book with the title Go Big. And then I noticed that him being a politician, me being a writer, we wrote the same thing and we looked at the same direction. It is this mutual aid groups, these solidarity groups, and how people help each other when there is no government that is responsible, that doesn't behave responsibly. So actually, and especially in Turkey, in a very recent time, like a few weeks ago, there were massive wildfires on the southern coast of Turkey. And because of the political reasons, because these coastliners, they didn't vote for the regime, Erdogan basically watched the wildfires devour the entire coastline, which, by the way, is the best place, most beautiful places in Turkey. So, and all these people, they saw that the government was completely absent. They, on their own, came together on social media and hired a plane from another country to come and to put out the fire. One day you're sitting at your home, you know nothing about the fire. Next day you find yourself hiring a plane, from another country. When things happen, when the crisis happens, the evil and the good crystallizes equally. And the good, we have to look at the good, and the good was this. People could manage themselves without the state, without the government. This is not necessarily an amazing thing, because the government has to be there, the state had to be there. But still, we are now learning, I think, to live without a domineering power. We know how to deal with our problems without the power. Unfortunately, we are, learning this through the, biggest tragedies, but we are learning it. So I think this is where we have to look at. This is what we have to think. How do we sustain these groups that pop up only during the crises? So, and in the book, I also talked about a Black Lives Matter movement, because it was interesting, especially if we think that it was a time when we weren't supposed to go out, when we weren't supposed to be together, and these people went out to protect their dignity. This is another moment of good being crystallized during a crisis. I think we might want to focus on them and see how we can make it more enduring in politics and in our social life. So I think this will be the question of 21st century, because we are going to see many more crises, and we are going to see many more of these solidarity actions and so on, and we will have to find a way to make them the dominant system on the planet. So, and I think this is the way out, as well as local politics, because local politics will become the reek of new politics, and the new young generation will be going around local politics, will be gathering around local politics to change the national politics. So these are,
nice.
I wouldn't say positive things, but these are new things that gives me hope, I would say.
And faith. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. I remember you saying the distinction between them. So we have two questions in the chat. Eva from Peru, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Hello, Eva, are you there? Okay, well, Eva asked why do we have to wait for the government to take care of everything.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Eva.
Eva, we can't hear you. Eva? Okay, I'll ask it. And it's in the chat. Why do we have to wait for the government to take care of everything? I think that we have to change the world. We should all participate, I think is what it's saying, which is basically what you just said.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. But the problem is, it's not we're not participating. Today's problem is not enough number of people have the will to participate. This is an important issue, because that goes back to this neoliberal understanding of the human and how it actually contaminated our minds. Because we no more have the will to self-manage in a way. Only in crises we are doing that. Otherwise, we do not want to take part in the decision making. We are so bored of it, and we think of it as too complicated, too complex. And when I say this, I immediately think about Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, because they were the ones in 1980s who told us that there are adults in the room, you don't have to do anything anymore. Economy is too complex, and it's going to be the dominant area that will rule the rest of the life, and we're going to take care of it, because numbers are talking to numbers now, so you don't have to know, and you don't want to know anyway. I think not enough people are talking about how 80s made this world that we are living in, and how we suddenly took it as the natural state of the world. There are many people, of course, who are talking about it, but not enough number of people are aware of the fact that this has only been 40 years that we are living in this world. The world was not like this before 1980s. The people were not like this before 1980s. And now I am thinking all these black and white or colored documentaries that I've seen, political documentaries about 1960s, 1970s. And I am comparing those faces to today's faces. And I see lack of faith, lack of seriousness, so to speak, because we are all contaminated with the sarcasm, with nihilism, with cynicism, and there is no way for us today to talk about human love without being, faced with smirks. Like, human love, We're talking about politics, señorita. Like, we're not talking about some, new age shit. This would be the answer you'd get if you talk about human love. Whereas when you said it in 1970s, they would be, I think, many of them would be very clear about that. Of course, what we are doing because of human love, because we love humans, because we believe in humans, we believe in the wisdom of humankind, and so on. But today, my point is, I'm curious about this. Why have we become so embarrassed, so shy to talk about these concepts, which have been the fundamental values of progressives. And also, one of the reasons I wrote this book is that we are living in a world where politics is dominated by emotions. Right-wing populists, authoritarian leaders, nationalists, they are all stirring emotions. They are all manipulating. They're all organizing these emotions. Yes, I mean, like, they are exploiting these emotions, but emotions are there. It's a highly emotional world right now, and everybody's talking about emotions. So we as progressives have to have something. We have to have something to say about emotions. We cannot just bypass it and say that emotions are like slippery ground. We don't want to talk about it. We want to talk about economy. We want to talk about equality and so on. But then people have emotions. For instance, we don't know what to feel about this extinction thing, about the apocalypse, let's say, because we know that actually there is no time anymore, and we lost all the time we had, and we are feeling completely helpless, and we don't feel that we can change anything. But at the same time, we're trying to feel like, we have time, we can still do it, and if we can, convince enough people, we can do it. This is this is a reality, but also an emotional state. So we have to do something about this, and this is why the book starts with now. Now we have to do something. Now is an amazingly horrifying sentence. What now? What? I mean, now is a very frustrating word. It is devastating now, because when even you say now, whenever you say now, you miss the moment. So we are in this state. We are in this state of mind. We are in this emotional state, and progressives have to talk about it. We have to talk. We have to come up with a cure. We have to think about it, and we have to share it to start with, because there is this understanding of progressives and progressive intellectuals, leftist opinion makers, and many people think that they are living in this other world where real things are not happening, and they are in this glass tower, so they don't have to go through things, and they are only thinking about economy, universal income. No, it's not like that. We are feeling, and we have to share this in order to share today's reality with the people who are not convinced with the facts, because we are living in an era where the facts do not convince people. We have to convince them through irrefutable words like dignity, like human life, love, like faith in humankind, and so on.
Yes, we've got a couple of questions in the chat, but I'd just like to... So all 10 words in your book seem to me words that were deliberately chosen to sink in at an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that thought, one of the things, it seems to me, the difference between now and the 60s, 70s is that we have social media which is designed to target our amygdalas. It's designed to go, the race to the bottom of the brainstem is a thing. And I listen quite a lot to the tech people discussing this, and they say, well, if Facebook decided to stop targeting your amygdala and stop showing you all the outrage, you would move off Facebook to the thing that was giving you those little emotional frisons, because that's hardwired into humanity. In your conversations with people, and I so wish I had listened to the one with Ed Milliband. I want to find that online.
Yeah. I think it's online. It is on the web now.
He thinks really deeply. How do we, as progressives, as people who believe, have faith in humanity, have hope for the future, want dignity for all of humanity and the more than human world, how can we begin to shift the balance back to the point where those sets of concepts are not laughed at? Are you finding any... I mean, I realise that's basically what your book is for, but as you're going around talking to people, are you seeing those concepts gaining traction? Or is it that people just kind of nod and go back and then fixate on their phones again, and they're back on Twitter screaming at each other?
I think young people will be doing this very soon. I think young people will be talking about these concepts very soon. 1980s was not only, was a period that forged the world to become different, to be less humane and so on, but also it was erasing the memory. It erased it so much so that young generation today think that socialism is a new sexy idea. No, seriously, that's why socialism suddenly is the most looked up word in American web pages, in Merriam-Webster. So they really don't remember, so they have to go back, and they really think that this is a new thing. So they will also think that dignity is a new word, not necessarily as a word, but this is a new perspective. Mm-hmm. Because they have been born into, actually I grew up in that world as well. The world since 1980s is a strange world because we are all living in legal systems where the fundamental assumption is that human is good. It's well-intending and so on. But our economic systems are standing upon the assumption that humans are bad and lazy. And they are greedy and so on. So this fundamental conflict is the conflict that produces lack of dignity, for instance, in our life. Our dignities, more or less, which it doesn't matter which class we belong to, our dignities are bruised, are damaged. And I think the young generation is already aware of this fact. They are not praising hard work as much as we did, for instance. This is very interesting to me. Their moral values are going to be different. And they want less. They want smaller. They want silence. They want fragile and so on. Their words are different because our words in 1980s were power, faster, bigger, and so on. Now they are coming to terms with the real needs of humankind because we are in the age of apocalypse, and they are living in this world where a sort of morality of surviving is emerging. It can go both ways, morality of survival. You can do like what this Elon Musk does. You can try to build a bunker in the moon or something. Or you can come to terms with the fact that we are fragile, we are human, and we have endless capacity for solidarity, and only way we can be free is to be together and to work together and so on. So I think young people, especially those people who are in this Extinction Rebellion, in climate strike and so on, they are, putting their weight on this better morality of survival. So they are going to be talking about these words with a lot of poetry, I would say. More poetic, politics will become more poetic.
Brilliant. Super. Okay, we've got some quite big questions. There's a very short question in the chat, which we'll come back to the question about another book towards the end. So Jennifer's asked a very Scottish-focused question, and you were in Edinburgh recently, but I guess it can be generalised. In Scotland, the government has committed to arranging a national care service to centralise all social care. The consultation is short, the details sparse on how this will be achieved. Is this centralised grab for power an expected reaction to local control? Is this the way governments behave the world over, I guess?
Okay, since this is not a big audience that I have to be careful about, I'm going to ask you something, actually. Because I see How to Lose a Country read by Scottish readers, and they're referring to Sturgeon. And I don't understand that because I don't really know about Scottish politics. But in general, I can understand this, I can answer this question by saying that, care yes, it might be, but then
Could I ask it? I mean, my thought was when you were speaking back and saying that there were lots of positive examples of how during COVID, because I wrote it then, and then we talked about other things. So just to put it into that context, we talked about really positive things happening and developing out of COVID, a lot of general local things, positive things. But in Scotland, I wondered about the trajectory, because I'm only halfway through How to Lose a Country. And I'm interested in the concept that after we have done a lot of this local work, a lot of people banding together to support in local communities, the reaction was to do a review of how we deliver all social care. And then the outcome of that is this really quick, we're going to set up an entirely new centralized thing, and it's all the power is going to come right back up to the top. And just as you were speaking about this positive boon of people working in their local areas to do good things during COVID, I wondered, is this a reaction that can often happen in governments where they've seen some positive elements coming from local areas and they instead suck that up to be more of a central, not necessarily sturgeon, but just in general?
Thank you, Jennifer. I was thinking, I also said that politics is trying to find a way to institutionalize this caring economy of care, economy of solidarity, social, making these mutual aid, groups more larger, and so on and so forth. So maybe this is one of those attempts. Of course, whenever something comes from power, we have to be suspicious about it, and critical as well. But this might also be understood as, okay, this is working, so we have to build something with this, upon this, and so on. So, yeah. And also, anyway, I'll stop it there because I don't know enough about Scottish politics to talk about it. But yeah, these attempts should be met with suspicion, but also some kind of, goodwill as well, because it might be well intended, I would say.
Thank you. Yes, because looking from England, I look at the Scottish government and I am so envious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep talking about running north and hiding before the border closes.
No, it's interesting because women, Jacinda Ardern, somehow Merkel, and these women are not leftists. They're coming from conservative politics, and Sturgeon and so on. They're doing quite a good job, and they are actually, all in all, represent some sort of care, politics of care, and this is something new for the world. This is the first time that women are doing, running the countries, and this is the first time that they are not embarrassed of being powerful. So I am expecting some good from this as well.
Brilliant. Okay, we have a question from Jorge and then one from Milan. So Jorge, do you want to ask your question?
Okay, thank you, Manda. No, just coming back to your book, one of the chapters is named "Design Your Own Citizen." It is clear to me by reading the book that I'm not sure if they are creating a citizen. There is a kind of a confrontation between the inland people looking to cities with confidence, to the global elites, and so it's people that is looking inwards, is looking back to their own tradition and beliefs, as a kind of seeking for a refugee from the outside. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a rebirth of nationalism, I understand, in times when globalization is being questioned and dismantled in some way. So, do you agree with that? Because I understand that these people, when they accuse you of being part of the global elite, is because they assume they are the very Turkish, and but we are our global proposal is in crisis, so we have a problem.
If I understood the input
Sorry,
correctly.
it's a bit confusing.
No, it is me as well. I couldn't really hear. So, it seems irrelevant, but actually it is relevant. There's a bit in Together where I talked about my attempt to grow tomatoes during pandemic. Like every middle-class bored person, I had time to do these things. And then while growing tomatoes, I understood that, it was in my balcony, I understood that, I kind of came close to understanding this peasant state of mind, which is you are afraid of anything irregular, you're afraid of anything that is coming outside, anything strange and so on, foreigner. And then when you're talking about this, I am thinking that I'm a cosmopolitan person. I lived in several countries, and if it wasn't for pandemic, I would be flying to, somewhere close to Manda, and then we would be, chatting. It's like this for me, flying to somewhere, and I have friends all over the world, and so on. How many people are living like this? I wonder. Not many. And yes, we became an elite, so to speak. We are not living amazing lives. We are not like the jet set people, but we are living a different life than a bank officer in a bank, which rarely goes somewhere or rarely meets a new person. So I think there is that as well. This there is this reaction to cosmopolitanism and cosmopolitan persona, which I understand because my grandmother was a nomad, but she was a conservative nomad. So she was telling me, I was going around too much, and she was telling me the shoe that wanders too much brings shit. So I think that settled down understanding of life is fearful always, which is coming from outside, which is going around too much, the cosmopolitan. Yes, there is that. And weirdly enough, we are the ones who are talking, who are writing in newspapers, who are going on TV screens, telling our ideas. I think our ideas do not apply to their lives. But then, this distinction, this parting ways, let's say, have been manipulated by the right-wing populists, and it has been exploited, and it has been turned to a cultural war. That is something manufactured. I don't believe in that. But of course, there is a difference between the cosmopolitan and the non-cosmopolitan. My friend is here from Brussels, and she came here to give a speech about Europe and cosmopolitan European and so on. And we were talking about this because she's a TV presenter, she's a novelist as well, Annelies Beck. We were talking about how our lives changed during pandemic. Now, we don't have the luxury of being cosmopolitan. We don't have the luxury of going here and there. And how for people like us, it is not only freedom, but also to realize ourselves, because our friends are in different countries, so we have to see them. We have to have the joy of life through this by creating a lot of carbon emission, actually. But coming back to your question, yes, there is a big distance between two ways of life. But creating politics upon this, doing politics with this, is a easy way out of the fact that all of us are living a life without dignity. And then, you can talk about pride there to those people, and we are the ones who are, mischiefs of the humankind, who are breaking the pride of the people, and they are the ones who are, defending the pride of the nation and so on. It's easier to do this than explaining people that this is a system where every one of us is living a life in dignity.
Thank you. So Milan has a question which I think follows on quite naturally from that. So Milan has said he's quite happy to ask. Milan, do you want to unmute and go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Merhaba Ece.
Merhaba Milan.
I am so happy to meet you, and I first want to thank you for all of your words and stories. They really mean a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
After reading Women Who Blow on Knots this summer, I then read, last week I read Together again, and I really want to know if Dido's house is as real as Madame Lila's pelican. But I won't ask you, I'll keep the faith and the mystery.
Okay.
I want to ask you about the concept you use a lot in Together, the concept of human nature. Because you say from the start of the book how we are capable of wonderful things, how it is in our nature to do wonderful and wondrous things, to create community. But that makes me wonder if that makes the fascists of today and their supporters less human because of the things they do. Is what they do less natural? And I know you say in How to Lose a Country that we should concentrate on the dialogue with allies instead of analyzing the enemy, if we conceive them as an enemy. But I'm just wondering what to do. Can we imagine a world where we extend our friendship, our dignity, our love, care to these people too, making them more human? How do you use the term human nature?
This is the downside of writing a book that goes between morality, emotions, and politics, because you suddenly find yourself with the responsibility of being Jesus Christ. Like, I love you. It is not. I'm not Jesus Christ. They are not less human, but fascism is the total loss of faith in humankind. They are human, totally human, and they are doing what humans do when they lose faith in themselves, and when the power of understanding, thinking, and expressing is taken over by a higher power. So that is why I keep on talking about faith in humankind, because total loss of it is the moral fundamental of fascism. Because fascism thinks that humans are dirty and they're not enough. They're not good. That's why it fixes humans constantly, every bit of them. And humans become beautiful in fascist mind when they are together, when they are uniformed, when there is no color but gray. Fascism is the total erasing of humanity from humans, because they don't have faith in the colors of human. So I don't think they're less human. When it comes to dialogue, yes, I said in How to Lose a Country, because this, we have to have a dialogue, we have to live together. That became a thing, especially after Trump came to power. And Americans, when they discover something, it is they think that it is the first time in humankind something is discovered. So they were trying to discover this living together with the Trumpeteers. And then they theorized it, which wasn't a good idea, because when you give the stage to the organized and unorganized and mobilized ignorance, then they talk, and they will know, they will leave no place for you to exist, for the other ideas to exist. So they were kind of naive about this, and this idea of dialogue, living together, has been tried in Turkey. We tried it. We failed wonderfully. Like, it was horrible, because we tried to give them space. We legitimized them, and then here we go. I'm not living in Turkey anymore, like many other people. So that is why, as you mentioned, I said in How to Lose a Country, let's talk about the dialogue between ourselves, between the allies, between progressive forces, and so on. But then together, I try to do something else. Yes, I'm not Jesus Christ, but I now know that there is no button that will erase these people from the face of the earth. We don't have to agree with them. I don't have to respect them at all. That respect thing is also, very, very dangerous. But I cannot erase them from the face of the earth. So I have to find the words to at least to make them look at me, to make them look at me, to see that I'm a human and we are sharing sort of same problems. We have our problems are not different than each other, not so much. So that is why I wrote together. So it was a little bit disappointing for those people who might think that, I was ready to write a book, how to kill the fascists or how to erase them from politics and so on. So yeah, I think it's clear what I wanted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one last question, I think, which is, I don't know how, is it Ece or Isa? Do you want to ask your question?
Hi, Ece.
Hi.
Yes, my question was short, but the reason I'm asking is I'm from the 78 generation from Turkey and came here after 1980, and I follow the politics as much as I can. And today's leftists, I feel they are going between, what to do. They are asking biggest question, how we can do it, what we can do it. And they are trying, and a lot of people, and somehow they are not getting together. That's why I like your book.
Thank you.
Touched the fundamental part of it. And it did kind of outline everything we need to get the principles right for us to communicate, I think. And then I thought there must be something to follow. Mm-hmm. What is next? Because now we are together. What we are going to do. So I'm quite excited what you are bringing up. And I think they are the solutions. And I kind of start to flourish my ideas because of your writing.
Thank you.
Like creating a community, shifting away from this current system and then moving towards to progressive ways. And I was following Varis Yarikos, the Greek economist. So he's got brilliant ideas, and maybe we can follow some ideas. It flicks lots of ideas in me, and I think that will happen all together. It can be done on its own. So I'm expecting another book from you.
Teşekkür ederim. It is weird because now I am the second generation who had to leave the country. Every generation, the progressives in Turkey have been rooted out every generation. So it is a miracle that the country is still standing and somehow struggling against fascism, and I am proud of that part of my country. So thank you for the question, Ayşe. I missed writing novels so much. So unfortunately, the next one will be a novel, hopefully, and it will take place in 1993 in Berlin, I'm hoping. The Turkish, people would know the woman, and the British and the several other countries will know very soon because her book is now translated to English and it's coming out on 17th of September. There was a woman, a journalist and a novelist who was a socialist as well in Turkey. Her name was Suat Dervish. And this is the first time I'm saying this, by the way. I told only 2 friends that I'm writing this, so you're the only ones who will know now. Suat Dervish went to Berlin in 1993 and I want to write a novel through her eyes. And yeah, that's what I want to do. It won't be, unfortunately, it won't be a political book, but not a political nonfiction book, but there will be politics in it, I think. Because I do think that...
I still like your novels as well.
Thank you. Because I think how women survive in situations where everything is a mess will teach us a lot. Could teach the world a lot, actually. Yeah, this is what I'm going to write about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your timing, as ever, is impeccable because we've just hit the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So, unless anybody has a final, very short question to ask, which no one's put anything else in the chat, if you've got about 5 seconds to type furiously fast if you have a final question. I don't think so. Okay, so then I think we're done. Ece, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Manda. I cannot thank you enough for this. You're in pain and you're doing this. I will never forget it. I appreciate and thank you, everyone. You've been amazing, and thank you for making time to talk to me.
Are you starting out a newsletter?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell about that. Oh, my God, thank you for reminding me. I'm starting a newsletter. It's called Letters from Now. And I'm going to writing every week letters directly to your inbox. And I'm going to be talking about world events, my personal life, everything. It's going to be like together. And these letters will be centered around the concepts that I talked about in Together. If you want to know, you can go to lettersfromnow.com and leave your email. And then on 7th, we are launching the project in a few days. Thank you, Manda, for reminding me that.
It's okay. I have signed up. I am in there as a sign up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. So that's it for our Zoom call. Huge thanks to Ece for calling in from Zagreb, for her humanity and her insight and her visions of a way we can be better together. And thanks to all who took part and to you for listening. We'll be back at the normal time next week on a Wednesday with our usual podcast episode. But in the meantime, enormous thanks, as ever, to Karo C for stepping up and doing yet more sound production. Thanks to Faith Tilleray for the website and particularly for creating really stunning event profiles. And thanks to you for listening. If you want to come to any of our other events, they are listed at accidentalgods.life. And you'll find the membership program there, where we endeavour to open a space where anyone, you, your friends, your colleagues, anybody at all, can learn to connect with the more than human world so that we too can be the best of ourselves and can step up to be whatever it is that the world needs us to be in this time of transition. So that's it for now. See you in the next episode. Thank you and goodbye.